Welcome to the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner Prepcast, where we guide you through everything you need to know for your certification exam. Whether you're just starting or looking to refine your knowledge, this course will set you up for success. Brought to you by baremetalcyber.com. Let's get started. One of the first architectural decisions in cloud computing is where workloads will live. Will they be hosted entirely in the public cloud, remain in on-premises data centers, or operate across both in a hybrid approach? This choice matters because it affects cost, control, compliance, and even user experience. Beginners should see deployment models as different ways of housing a business. One option is renting an apartment in a managed high-rise. Another is maintaining your own standalone house, and a third is splitting between the two. Each comes with benefits and responsibilities. Understanding the trade-offs helps organizations make informed, strategic decisions rather than rushing into one model blindly. The public cloud, like AWS, is characterized by elasticity, scalability, and managed infrastructure. Resources can be provisioned on demand, paying only for what is used. This model reduces upfront costs and speeds innovation, as teams no longer wait for physical hardware to arrive. It also provides access to advanced services like AI and analytics without large capital investments. For learners, the cloud is like a utility grid. Instead of buying a generator for every building, you tap into a shared power source that delivers electricity whenever needed. The benefits are agility, reduced overhead, and rapid scaling to meet demand. Hybrid cloud bridges the gap between on-premises systems and AWS. Some workloads stay in local data centers for compliance, latency, or legacy reasons, while others run in the cloud. Connectivity tools like VPN and Direct Connect link the environments together. Hybrid allows gradual migration and preserves investments in existing infrastructure. Beginners should picture this as renovating a house while already moving furniture into a new apartment. You live in both places during the transition. Hybrid brings flexibility but also complexity, as governance and tooling must cover both sides consistently. On-premises deployment means running workloads entirely in a company's own facilities. This provides maximum control over hardware, data handling, and network design. However, it also brings higher costs for purchasing, maintaining, and securing infrastructure. On-premises environments often struggle with scalability, since adding capacity requires new equipment. For learners, on-premises is like owning your own farm. You control every detail, but also handle all the labor, costs, and risks yourself. It can make sense for industries with strict regulatory or performance constraints, but it limits the flexibility cloud users enjoy. Data residency and compliance are powerful drivers in deployment model decisions. Some regulations require data to remain within specific geographic regions or under direct customer control. Public cloud providers like AWS offer regions to support data sovereignty, but organizations may still choose hybrid or on-premises solutions when rules are especially strict. Beginners should see this as keeping sensitive records locked in a local safe rather than stored in a remote vault. Compliance often dictates where data lives, sometimes more strongly than cost or performance factors. Latency and user proximity also influence deployment choices. Applications that serve global users benefit from AWS regions and edge services, which reduce delay by hosting content close to users. By contrast, workloads tied to local operations, such as factory systems, may remain on-premises to guarantee millisecond response times. For learners, this is like choosing between streaming a movie from a distant server or from a local DVD. The closer the content, the smoother the experience. Deployment decisions often balance performance with centralization. AWS extends cloud capabilities to the edge with local zones and wavelength zones. Local zones bring compute and storage closer to major metropolitan areas, while wavelength integrates AWS services into telecom networks to provide ultra-low latency for mobile applications. These edge options serve use cases like gaming, streaming, or real-time analytics. Beginners should see this as AWS opening branch offices near the customer base. The main headquarters is still in the cloud, but the edge locations shorten the distance between services and users. Identity is a critical consideration in hybrid models. AWS supports integration with existing directories such as Microsoft Active Directory, enabling single sign-on across cloud and on-premises resources. This ensures that user identities remain consistent no matter where workloads run. For learners, it's like using one ID card to access both a downtown office and a remote warehouse. Hybrid identity solutions reduce friction and avoid managing separate sets of users for each environment. Storage also benefits from hybridization. AWS Storage Gateway allows on-premises applications to access cloud-backed storage transparently. This can extend local capacity without replacing existing systems. For example, backups can flow to S3 while applications still interact with local disk interfaces. Beginners should picture this as attaching a hidden extension to your filing cabinet that stores overflow documents in a warehouse, yet still lets you retrieve them instantly. Hybrid storage helps organizations transition smoothly without disrupting established workflows. Connectivity forms the backbone of hybrid models. Virtual private network connections provide encrypted tunnels between on-premises networks and AWS. For more stable, high-bandwidth needs, Direct Connect offers dedicated links into AWS regions. Beginners should compare VPNs to secure highways and Direct Connect to private rail lines. Both connect the same 2 points, but one offers greater speed and reliability. The right choice depends on workload demands, security sensitivity, and cost considerations. Governance becomes more complex when workloads span multiple environments. Policies must apply consistently across on-premises, hybrid, and cloud-based resources. Tools like AWS Organizations, Config, and Security Hub help enforce standards in the cloud, while integration with third-party tools may extend governance into on-premises systems. For learners, this is like ensuring the same fire codes apply whether a building is in the city center or on the outskirts. Without unified governance, hybrid strategies create silos and gaps that weaken security. Shared responsibility also changes depending on the deployment model. In the public cloud, AWS secures infrastructure, while customers secure their own workloads. In hybrid, customers retain more control and thus more responsibility for connections and on-premises systems. In fully on-premises environments, all responsibility falls to the organization. Beginners should view this as levels of outsourcing. The more AWS provides, the less you must handle yourself, but the trade-off is less direct control. The exam often tests this shifting boundary. Migration is rarely all or nothing. Organizations usually start with simple patterns, like rehosting applications on EC2 or using S3 for backups. Over time, they may refactor workloads to use managed services or retire systems no longer needed. These patterns, retain, retire, rehost, refactor, are part of cloud adoption journeys. Beginners should see migration as a phased move rather than an overnight leap. Each step builds confidence and experience, leading toward greater cloud maturity. Monitoring must cover the entire hybrid footprint. CloudWatch provides insights into AWS workloads, while tools like CloudTrail record API activity. On-premises and third-party systems may require integration into centralized monitoring platforms or CEMs. Beginners should think of this as watching both the front yard and the backyard with a single camera system. Monitoring that misses part of the environment leaves blind spots that attackers can exploit. Hybrid monitoring must unify signals from multiple sources to provide complete situational awareness. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Selecting the right deployment model always begins with business constraints. Some organizations are driven by compliance requirements, others by cost, and others by performance or latency needs. A financial institution may insist on hybrid to keep sensitive data under direct control while leveraging AWS analytics. A startup may prefer all-in cloud to maximize agility and minimize upfront investment. Beginners should see this as choosing a vehicle, A bicycle, a car, or a truck each suits different purposes. The exam often frames questions around which model best satisfies specific constraints. Migration usually unfolds in phases, using patterns such as retain, retire, rehost, or refactor. Retain means leaving systems in place when moving them is not yet feasible. Retire means eliminating workloads that are no longer needed. Rehost, sometimes called lift and shift, means moving workloads to AWS without major changes. Refactor means redesigning applications to take advantage of cloud-native services. For learners, this is like moving houses. You may keep some furniture, throw away what you don't need, move some items intact, and rebuild others to fit the new space. Cost and licensing considerations can also sway decisions. On-premises systems demand capital expenditures, while cloud models shift to operational expenses. Software licensing may behave differently across environments, with bring-your-own license options in some cases and cloud-inclusive licensing in others. Beginners should view this as the difference between buying a car outright versus leasing one. The financial model impacts flexibility, upgrades, and long-term commitments. Exam questions often ask about cost models tied to deployment choices. Security posture must remain consistent regardless of model. Hybrid or on-premises environments require parity with cloud controls, encryption at rest and in transit, logging, monitoring, and access management. Gaps in parity create weak links. Beginners should think of this as ensuring every door in a building has locks, not just the front entrance. Even if workloads live in different places, they must all meet the same baseline security standards to reduce risk. Backup and disaster recovery must also be aligned across models. Cloud workloads often use automated snapshots, multi-region replication, or services like AWS Backup. On-premises systems may require tape backups or replication to a secondary data center. Hybrid environments combine these approaches. For learners, it's like ensuring both your home and your vacation cabin. The policies may differ in detail, but both ensure you can recover if disaster strikes. The exam often highlights recovery objectives, RTO and RPO, and how they differ by model. Network architecture is another area where trade-offs appear. Cloud-only environments benefit from AWS's global backbone and regional availability. Hybrid models require secure, reliable connections between on-premises and cloud, often via VPN or Direct Connect. On-premises systems depend on privately built networks. Beginners should compare this to communication methods. Cloud is like using a global cell network, hybrid is like combining cell service with private landlines, and on-prem is like building your own radio tower. Each option brings different costs and complexity. Data gravity is a concept that often drives deployment decisions. Large datasets are expensive and difficult to move, and applications often follow the data. Egress charges in the cloud add another layer, as moving data out of AWS can be costly. Beginners should picture this as the weight of cargo. The heavier the data, the harder it is to move. Workloads tend to remain where the data resides, making placement decisions sticky. The exam may ask you to identify when data gravity favors hybrid or on-premises retention. Operational tooling must also be standardized. Running separate monitoring, logging, and deployment systems for cloud and on-premises creates inefficiency. Many organizations use central SIEM platforms, log aggregators, and automation tools that work across environments. Beginners should think of this as using the same set of tools in every workshop you own. Whether you're in the city or countryside, you rely on the same wrench set to maintain consistency and skill. Tooling uniformity is essential for effective governance. Change management and release flows should be unified as well. Infrastructure as code pipelines can deploy to both AWS and on-premises through hybrid tools. This ensures that every change is tested, reviewed, and auditable. Beginners should see this as standardizing construction permits. Whether you build in one town or another, the permit and inspection process follows the same steps. Unified change management prevents fragmented processes that weaken security and compliance. Vendor and partner roles become more prominent in hybrid paths. Telecommunications providers, co-location facilities, and integration partners may all be involved in extending cloud services into private environments. Beginners should view this as contracting specialists. Electricians, plumbers, and inspectors contribute to a building project. AWS provides the foundation, but external partners often complete the picture. Exam questions may highlight when hybrid strategies depend on external collaboration. Observability and incident response also span all models. Logs from AWS must combine with logs from on-premises firewalls or servers, providing a single view of operations. Response playbooks should account for hybrid incidents where attackers pivot between cloud and local environments. Beginners should think of this as coordinating multiple fire departments. City and county responders must work together seamlessly. Observability across models ensures no blind spots during crises. From an exam perspective, learners must match the deployment model to the requirement. If compliance mandates full local control, on-premises is the answer. If agility and scale are key, cloud is the right fit. If gradual migration or data residency concerns apply, hybrid is best. Beginners should approach these questions by asking, what is the driving constraint? Cost, compliance, latency, or migration? The model chosen should map directly to that constraint. Future-proofing is the last major theme. Even if an organization chooses on-premises or hybrid today, the architecture should allow portability. Using containers, standardized APIs, and infrastructure as code helps workloads move more easily in the future. Beginners should see this as designing modular furniture. Even if you live in one house today, you want pieces that can move to the next. AWS emphasizes designing with evolution in mind, because needs and regulations change over time. In conclusion, deployment models are not one-size-fits-all. Some organizations benefit most from the elasticity of cloud, others from the control of on-premises, and many find hybrid the most practical path. The key is to choose the model that meets today's constraints while leaving room to adapt tomorrow. For learners, the principle is clear. Map business needs to technical realities and use AWS's flexibility to evolve safely and strategically. Deployment is not a destination but a journey, and the model can shift as organizations mature. That concludes today's episode of the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner Prepcast. Be sure to tune in for the next episode and visit us online at baremetalcyber.com or cyberauthor.me for more resources, including news, mailing lists, YouTube videos, podcasts, and much more.